Welcome to Universe of Love and Anime, where heartfelt love stories come alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to spread love and hope. Thank you for joining us now. Let's dive into today's touching story. Growing Heart Chapter 1. The day my world collapsed, the day we were supposed to get our marriage certificate, was the day everything shattered. Instead of standing beside me at the civil registry, Victor made a public announcement, proudly declaring another woman as his one true love. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. Driven by rage and heartbreak, I did something unimaginable. I married his archenemy. And when Victor found out, he came to confront me, furious and wounded. "You married the man I hate the most just to get revenge on me. And you still claim you don't love me," he shouted. His rival stood beside me, wrapping his arm around my waist with a cold, mocking smile. "He finally came to his senses and left a pathetic little dog like you. Do you really think you deserve love?" His words stung, but I didn't flinch. The pain had already numbed me long ago. Chapter 2. The 4 hours of waiting that day at the civil registry. I waited for 4 excruciating hours. Victor never showed up. Waves of couples entered and exited the building, each pair throwing curious glances my way before whispering quietly as they walked off. I didn't blame them. I had been standing there when they arrived, and I was still there when they left. Anyone could see the truth: I had been stood up. But the situation was far more complicated than I imagined. Just before the office closed, I tried calling Victor one last time, but once again, all I heard was the automated message, "We're sorry. The dialed number is on another call." Desperate for answers, I opened WeChat to reach him. But before I could send a message, his latest post appeared on my screen. "You are my ray of sunshine," he wrote, alongside a heavily filtered photo of him with a woman I had never seen before. In the corner of the picture, written in delicate script, were the words, "True love." If Victor hadn't been my fiancé, and if today wasn't supposed to be our wedding day, I might have even smiled. Maybe wished them well. But not today. Not when he publicly declared his love for someone else on the very day we were supposed to get married. Not only had he stood me up, but he had also rubbed salt into my wound in front of everyone. The comments came pouring in almost instantly. "I wish you eternal happiness, brother. You and your girl make a perfect couple. Congratulations, beautiful." No one sensed anything wrong except for one blunt comment that exposed everything. "This isn't Ely's, bro. You forgot to switch to your secondary account." Minutes later, Victor deleted the post, but it was too late. I had already captured a screenshot. Thanks to the location tag on the post, I knew exactly where he was. Chapter 3. The confrontation. I found him in a private room at a bar, surrounded by his group of close friends. The woman from the post was sitting beside him, looking comfortable and confident. As I walked in and sat down next to Victor, the entire room froze, as if someone had pressed pause on reality. One of his friends, the same one who had commented, "Eternal happiness," greeted me awkwardly, calling me sister-in-law. I gave him a cold smile, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "So, you two are together now?" Faces around the room turned pale with guilt. Victor quickly stood up and grabbed my hand, trying to regain control. "Elise, it's not what you think. We were playing truth or dare. I lost. That post-it was just a joke." I raised an eyebrow and cut him off, my voice sharp but calm. "Do you even know what day it is?" He grew more nervous under my gaze. Instead of yelling or crying, I sat there, composed, waiting for his explanation. "Elise, I'm sorry," he finally said. "Work has been overwhelming lately. I didn't want to get distracted by personal matters right now." And, of course, he ended with his usual empty reassurance. "But I love you." The audacity made my stomach turn. I pulled my hand away and stared at him, my voice flat. "We've been engaged for 2 years. Our wedding is scheduled for next month. If you didn't want to get married, you should have said so before. But instead, you stood me up and declared your love for another woman in front of everyone. Victor, do you think this is funny?" His expression darkened with irritation, and before he could respond, the other woman spoke up, her tone full of arrogance. Miss Liu, don't you understand? Mr. Sunli doesn't want to be rushed into marriage. You're the one pressuring him. A man like him, full of ambition and promise, shouldn't be tied down so early. I nearly laughed at her self-righteousness. Her martyr act was pathetic. What infuriated me more was Victor's silence. He didn't correct her. I turned to him again. Is that how you feel too? Victor lowered his gaze and simply said, Sorry, Elise. I exhaled slowly. In that case, let's call off the wedding. Speak to your parents. I'll talk to mine. Victor actually looked relieved. Elise, you're so understanding. Once my career is more stable, we'll have the grand wedding you deserve. I shook my head. There's no need. As for the business collaboration between our families, I'll handle it. His expression froze. What do you mean? I looked him straight in the eye. I mean the wedding is permanently cancelled. We are done. Chapter 4. The cold wind and harsh reality. I walked out into the cold, winter wind slicing against my face. The bitter air stung my cheeks, but it was nothing compared to the storm inside me. The entire confrontation replayed over and over in my head: his betrayal, his lies, his cowardice. Regret seeped into my chest. Not because I still loved him, but because I had acted too impulsively. Our engagement wasn't just about love. It was a carefully arranged business alliance. It wasn't simply the end of a relationship, it was the collapse of a partnership that connected both our families. And now, I had burned that bridge completely. Chapter 5. The wild card today. By breaking up with Victor out of pure anger, I had inevitably shaken the fragile alliance between both families. Just as the board's support for me had already begun to waver, this scandal exploded like fuel thrown onto a burning fire. In the middle of my frustration and mental chaos, one name surfaced in my mind: Vicente. I reopened the screenshot I had taken earlier. The comment that exposed Victor's deceit was written by none other than Vicente. If there was anyone who could replace Victor and marry me, it was him. After all, back when I had to choose a fiancé, Vicente was one of my options. Back then, I hadn't yet graduated. I was in my final year of university, balancing my studies while stepping into my father's company as his health rapidly declined. I had absolutely no experience in business management. My background was in fine arts, and everything in the corporate world was overwhelming at first. But after 3 years of struggling, stumbling, and learning, I started to gain footing, building connections, growing my influence, and earning a place for myself. To solidify my position further, I decided on a marriage of convenience. Both Victor and Vicente were strong candidates, both from powerful families, both offering immense strategic value to the Liu family. But there was a fundamental difference between them. Victor was born with a silver spoon, arrogant and spoiled since childhood. Vicente, however, lost his father at 17. He dropped out of high school and carried the weight of his family's business on his shoulders. While the rest of us were still attending classes and partying like carefree students, Vicente was flying from city to city, closing deals and building an empire. That naturally placed him on a different level. Among our peers, we were all referred to with the title Young Master before our family names. Only Vicente was simply called President, and not out of courtesy, but because he had truly earned it. Even now, he's a frequent guest on financial programs on local television, his authority widely recognized. Back then, I chose Victor because we were already familiar with each other. We had been classmates since high school, continued into college, and our families were closely linked. Marrying Victor would allow me to maintain my freedom within the Liu company without much interference. Vicente, on the other hand, was different. He was impressive, but his presence carried a kind of quiet authority that commanded respect and, to be honest, a little fear. He was like the deep ocean beneath the surface where sunlight doesn't reach. There's only cold, darkness, and absolute power. During my 2-year engagement to Victor, Vicente slowly devoured business after business from the Sunli family. Victor held a deep grudge against him. Every time they crossed paths at a reception, Victor would sneer or make childish provocations. Vicente never responded. He simply ignored Victor, detached and unbothered, as if swatting away an insect wasn't even worth his time. He was only a year older than us, but he seemed much older, more mature, distant, and untouchable. I still remember one time when Victor threw a tantrum, slammed his cards on the table, and dragged me out of the room in anger. As we left, I instinctively glanced back. Vicente was watching me, his brows slightly furrowed, his dark eyes filled with something unreadable, something that made my heart skip a beat. That look wasn't dazzling, but it left my blood running hot and my breathing unsteady. Chapter 6. The Proposition. I found Vicente's profile on WT. After hesitating for a while, I finally sent him a simple message. "Where are you?" I half expected him to ignore me, but to my surprise, his reply came instantly, sharing his location. His response was so fast it made me wonder if he had been waiting for me to reach out all along. My stomach twisted with nervous energy. My mind spun with the countless things said earlier that night. Finally, I clenched my teeth, summoned my courage, and called for a taxi to the address he had sent. The destination turned out to be a hotel, but upon arrival, I realized it wasn't a hotel room, it was a private billiard hall. The moment I stepped inside, my nerves eased just a little. Forcing a smile, I walked toward the pool table. Mr. Vicente was playing alone. He wore a simple white shirt with the sleeves casually rolled up, revealing his strong forearms. As he bent forward to aim, the muscles in his back flexed elegantly beneath the fabric, refined, yet exuding a raw, dominant power. With a swift stroke, he scattered the balls across the table. The room was empty, except for us. He didn't acknowledge my presence, continuing to play as though I wasn't even there. He was doing it intentionally, leaving me suspended in awkwardness. My throat tightened, but I pushed forward despite my embarrassment. "Mr. And I know you've seen the post." "I saw it too. That's why I came here tonight to ask you something." Silence. Not a word. As I spoke, he continued setting up more balls for the next shot, entirely focused on his game. Gathering all my remaining courage, I stepped into his line of sight and stood in front of him. "Mr. And I know this is bold, but if you agree to marry me, I promise to do so with complete sincerity." His cue stick missed for the first time. Vicente paused, standing upright, his dark gaze locking onto me. His eyes were cold and penetrating, sending a chill down my spine. "I've told you before," he finally spoke, his voice deep and resonant. "Victor was never the right man for you. But now that you've crashed into reality and gotten hurt, you come running to me. Your wedding with him was only a month away, and now you want to marry me? What am I? A spare card for your relationship games?" He towered over me, his voice calm, yet carrying an oppressive weight that made my scalp tingle. His presence was overwhelming. I swallowed hard, but at this point, pride no longer mattered. "You're right," I admitted. "I was a fool." The pool room fell into complete silence. Vicente pressed his lips together without saying a word. "Today was supposed to be our registration day," I continued. "Victor stood me up and posted that photo. I know I'm using feelings as a bargaining chip now, and it's shameful. But at the end of the day, both of us are businessmen. Just like you dropped out of school to take over your family business, I can't let my parents' company fall apart because of my personal mistakes. Marrying you would offer more advantages than disadvantages for both sides." I stopped talking and waited tensely for his reply. I expected him to throw me out, but instead, he handed me the cue stick. "There are 3 balls left," he said calmly. "If you sink them all, I'll consider it." "Are you serious?" I blinked, unsure if he was joking. Vicente looked away briefly. "If you can make all 3, we'll talk." He then turned and walked to the bar to pour himself a glass of water, leaving me standing there with the cue stick trembling slightly in my hands. Chapter 7. The shot that changed everything. I held the cue in my hands, mimicking what Vicente had done. I had never played billiards before, but somehow I potted the first ball on my very first try. I was stunned. Instinctively, I glanced over at Vicente. He hadn't expected it either. The cup in his hand froze midway to his lips. "2 left," he said coolly before taking another sip. My nerves began to mount. I missed the second ball on my first attempt. Vicente said nothing, so I kept trying. After several failed attempts, I finally sank it. Only the final ball remained the red one. It was positioned far across the table. If I didn't hit it hard enough, the ball wouldn't reach. If I hit it too hard, I risked sending the cue ball flying off the table. My palms grew sweaty, and my anxiety worsened with each failed attempt. I must have tried over 10 times. The more I missed, the more nervous I became. I glanced at Vicente once again, hoping for even a hint of leniency. But he stood firm, showing no sign of giving in. The clock ticked past 1 in the morning. My energy was fading. I'll try one last time, I whispered to myself. If I miss, then so be it. That'll be fate. Taking a deep breath, I steadied my hand and took the shot. I missed. My heart sank. Accepting defeat, I placed the cue back on the table. I was about to say something, but before the words could leave my lips, Vicente appeared behind me. I hadn't even noticed when he approached. Gently, he took my hand and placed the cue back in my grasp. I'll teach you, he said softly. My heart skipped. At that moment, Vicente leaned over, guiding my posture. Focus on the ball, he murmured just above my ear. Place your hand like this. I could feel the warmth of his chest against my back as his voice vibrated through me. My mind went completely blank. Like a puppet, I followed his instructions exactly. The cue struck. Clack. The 2 balls collided and rolled into the pocket. I stared in disbelief. They went in. I turned to Vicente, my eyes wide with astonishment. We were so close, only a few centimeters apart. For a brief second, he looked straight into my eyes. My heart raced wildly. After a pause that felt like an eternity, he pulled back and straightened my posture. Before I could speak, he simply said, "Tomorrow, 9 a.m., Civil Registry." I froze for a moment, then nodded. Okay. Chapter 8. The marriage certificate. Vicente drove me home that night. But sleep refused to come. His voice, "I'll teach you," echoed over and over in my mind. As dawn approached, I barely managed to rest. My body woke up at 7:30, but even before that, by 7, I had already received a message from Vicente. "Don't forget your ID and family record book." Right. Last night I won. Today I was marrying Vicente. I got ready carefully, applying light makeup to conceal the exhaustion on my face. At 8:30, I stepped out of my apartment. As I exited the building, a familiar car pulled up with a soft beep. The window rolled down, revealing Vicente behind the wheel. "Get in." At the civil registry, I worried that Vicente might appear distant or cold in the photo. But to my surprise, the photo was approved on the first try. The staff handed us our marriage certificate. "Congratulations. You make a beautiful couple. We wish you happiness." Only when I held the small red booklet with the official seal did the reality sink in. We were married. Vicente smiled. It was faint, but unmistakable. Even in the photo, he looked surprisingly approachable. I couldn't help but tease. "Why do you look so much friendlier in the photo than in person?" Chapter 9. My father's reaction. I was still mesmerized by the newly printed certificate when Vicente approached me. "Where are you headed?" "I'll drive you." "It's fine. You take care of your business. I have some errands to run," I replied calmly. He didn't press further. "Call me if you need anything." After we parted ways, I returned to the Liu household. My father was practicing calligraphy when I arrived. Cautiously, I stepped closer, feeling a tight knot of anxiety in my chest. The fresh marriage certificate was still warm in my pocket. "You're back, Elise," my father greeted warmly. "Come see the wedding invitations I just wrote. My handwriting looks pretty good, doesn't it?" He set his brush down with pride. Ever since his health declined, he had mostly withdrawn from company affairs. When he handed leadership over to me, the pressure was immense. Everything I had done, I did to make him proud, even agreeing to marry into the Sumley family for the company's future. And yet, I had just torn that plan apart and married Vicente instead. He didn't know yet, and I was terrified that telling him might send him into shock. I stood frozen, unable to speak. My father noticed my hesitation. "Is something wrong?" he asked gently. Swallowing hard, I summoned the same courage I had relied on the night before. I'm already married," I finally confessed. My father chuckled, not understanding yet. "I know. Weren't you supposed to get married yesterday? But Victor didn't come with you." "It wasn't Victor," I whispered. "It was Vicente." My father's eyes widened instantly. "What did you say?" Slowly, I pulled out the marriage certificate and placed it in front of him. His hands trembled as he held it, his breathing quickening. "Dad," I called out anxiously, fearing for his health. Thankfully, he was a man who had weathered many storms. He soon regained his composure and sat down. For a long time, he stared at the photo and names printed inside the little red booklet. Finally, his eyes locked onto mine. "What happened?" To my surprise, there was no anger in his voice. My eyes welled with tears as I recounted everything that had happened. My father remained silent for a long while, listening carefully. Then, without another word, he ripped up the wedding invitations he had just finished writing. "It's better this way," he said, reaching for the phone. He immediately called the Sunley family and canceled everything. After his initial anger faded, his worry took over. "But Elise, marrying Vicente like this, wasn't it too rushed? If you regret it, you can always annul the marriage. It's not too late. The company is not worth sacrificing your happiness." The words Vicente had spoken last night echoed in my mind. Annul it? I just signed and now I want to cancel? That would be treating him like a tool. "No, Dad," I reassured him. "Vicente is actually a very good man." But as I tried to speak kindly about Vicente, I realized how little I truly knew him. Under my father's watchful gaze, I lied shamelessly. He's been secretly in love with me for years. I finally convinced him. My father, still worried, insisted on meeting Vicente soon. Chapter 10. The confrontation with Victor. My father wasted no time. The moment I left, he called the Sunley family to officially cancel everything. The next day, my phone rang. It was Victor. His voice, full of fury, exploded through the speaker. "Elise, are you serious?" "Serious about what?" I asked coldly. "About canceling the wedding. It's not that I don't want to marry you, but do you really have to blow things out of proportion like this?" Chapter 11. Victor's fury. The morning after my whirlwind marriage to Vicente, I thought I might finally have a moment of quiet. But reality knocked on my door much sooner than expected. My phone rang sharply, slicing through the stillness. I glanced at the screen. Victor. His name flashing on my screen made my stomach tighten. I hesitated for a moment, but deep down, I knew I couldn't avoid this conversation forever. With a steady breath, I answered. "Elise, are you serious?" Victor's voice erupted before I could even say hello. The raw anger in his tone immediately pierced through the phone. "Serious about what?" I asked, my voice calm, almost indifferent. "About canceling the wedding," he snapped. "What are you trying to do? Embarrass me? It's not like I didn't want to marry you." His words were like a sharp slap. I clenched my jaw, trying to hold back the flood of emotions. After everything he had done, he still had the nerve to act like the victim. "Victor," I spoke slowly, each word cutting with precision. "You didn't want to marry me? You left me standing alone at the civil registry for 4 hours. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You posted a public declaration of your love for another woman on the day of our wedding registration. And now you dare tell me I'm the one making a scene?" "That wasn't what it looked like," he barked defensively. "It was just a stupid game. We were playing truth or dare." I cut him off, my patience already worn thin. "Truth or dare?" My voice grew sharper. "You expect me to believe that? Do you take me for a fool? Posting "you are my sunshine" with her photo and calling it true love. Was that part of your game too?" For a moment, there was nothing but heavy breathing from his side. Then his voice dropped, bitter and sharp. "So what now?" You went and married Vicente? My archenemy? Of all people, you chose him? You think you're teaching me a lesson? His words stabbed like needles, but I refused to flinch. I didn't marry Vicente to teach you anything. I married him because you left me no other choice. My voice was firm, but inside, I could feel my pulse racing. You know exactly how much was at stake, not just for me, but for my family, for the company. You threw everything into chaos, and I had to find a solution. Victor let out a cold laugh. A solution? So Vicente is your solution now? Do you think he actually cares about you? You're nothing but a pawn to him. You think he married you out of love. The way he said it made my stomach twist. His words struck deep because I, too, had wondered the same. I barely knew Vicente. What existed between us was not love, but an agreemented deal born out of desperation. But even so, I refused to let Victor see my uncertainty. That's none of your business anymore, I said sharply. You lost the right to care the moment you chose someone else. Vicente may not love me, but at least he respects his commitments, unlike you. His breathing grew heavier, his anger nearly boiling over. You really are unbelievable, Elise. After everything we've been through, you think you can just throw me away like this? Like you threw me away? I fired back without hesitation. His silence said it all. And then, after a long pause, he hissed through clenched teeth. Fine. But mark my words, you'll regret this. And with that, he hung up. The call ended, but the echo of his voice lingered in my ears, sharp and suffocating. I lowered my phone slowly, my fingers trembling slightly. It wasn't fear. It was the weight of everything crashing down at once: the betrayal, the rushed marriage, the unknown future ahead with Vicente. I had closed one door, but in doing so, I had locked myself into a new room full of uncertainties. Standing there alone, I glanced down at my hand, still holding the freshly issued marriage certificate. Vicente's name printed beside mine stared back at me, solid and irreversible. A part of me felt relief that I had at least secured the business alliance, ensuring stability for my family and the company. But another part whispered anxiously, what kind of man had I truly married? Vicente was calm, reserved, dangerously composed. His presence always held an air of mystery, like a calm ocean concealing unfathomable depths. Unlike Victor, who wore his emotions on his sleeve, Vicente never revealed his cards. Was this marriage simply a strategic transaction to him as well? Or did he have deeper motives that I hadn't yet begun to uncover? For now, there was no answer. Only silence and the weight of choices I could no longer undo. Chapter 12. The clash of pride. The evening air was suffocating as Vicente and I walked through the corridor after the tense dinner. His steps were steady beside me, but I could feel the shield of calm confidence he always exuded, wrapping me like silent protection. My own heart was pounding, not from fear but from the heavy emotions swirling inside: Victor's rage, my father's worry, and now, my own complicated feelings toward the man walking beside me. Just when I thought the night was finally ending, fate had other plans. As we turned the corner, Victor stood there, like a shadow waiting in ambush. His eyes, bloodshot and full of fire, locked onto mine instantly, and the air thickened with unspeakable tension. For a moment, none of us moved. The world narrowed to just the three of us, standing in this tight, suffocating hallway. Then Victor's voice cracked through the silence, sharp and bitter. Elise, how could you do this? How could you break up with me like that? My lips remained sealed. There was nothing left for him to hear, and nothing I wished to say. But Victor wasn't done. His fists clenched, and he slammed one against the wall, his entire body trembling with fury. You didn't even give me a chance to explain, he shouted. You didn't wait, Elise. You ran straight into his arms. His voice wavered as desperation and disbelief mixed into one. My breathing slowed, trying to stay calm, but Vicente moved first. Without hesitation, he stepped in front of me, positioning himself like an unshakable wall between Victor and me. His arm wrapped firmly around my waist, pulling me slightly closer. His voice was steady, low, and cold, but each word hit like a sword. "We're married." The weight of those two words crashed down on Victor like an avalanche. He froze. His face drained of color, lips trembling, chest heaving as his world collapsed in front of him. His eyes darted back and forth between Vicente and me, trying to comprehend what he had just heard. He staggered slightly, choking on his breath before finally forcing out, "How long? How long have you two been together?" Vicente answered without even blinking, his tone flat and merciless. "That's none of your business." Victor's fragile control snapped. His rage erupted into a desperate roar. "You were already seeing him, weren't you?" His finger shot out toward Vicente like a blade. "Weren't you the one who always said you couldn't stand him? And now you marry him? Was this all just some twisted game to punish me?" His voice echoed through the narrow hallway, each word heavier than the last. My heart pounded, but I wouldn't let him drag me into his madness. I stared directly into his eyes and spoke with quiet force. "No, Victor. He's not the person I hate the most." My words sliced through him sharper than any blade. His face went pale, his eyes widened, his body swayed slightly as if my words alone were too heavy to bear. Vicente stood there beside me, silent but firm, his arms still steady around my waist like an unbreakable anchor. His chin lifted, eyes calm, as though Victor's hysteria was beneath him. We moved forward, ready to walk past and leave this madness behind, but Victor couldn't let go. He let out a bitter, broken laugh that echoed behind us, his voice dripping with venom. "You may fool everyone else with your little act, Elise, but you can't fool me." He turned his glare toward Vicente, his voice lowering into a sharp, poisonous tone. "You think she married you because she loves you? Don't kid yourself. She's using you. She married you to hurt me. That's all this is. Deep down, the person she still loves is me." His words cut deep into the heavy silence, hanging in the air like thick smoke. My stomach clenched involuntarily, but before I could respond, Vicente's grip on me tightened slightly. His entire body tensed, but his expression remained composed, his eyes now sharpened like a blade. His voice was low but powerful, each word steady, cold, and irrefutable. "Victor, you lost the right to speak for her the moment you betrayed her. Don't confuse your regret with love. You lost her long before I came into the picture." Victor opened his mouth to argue, but Vicente's words silenced him. The hallway fell into a deep, heavy quiet. I could see Victor's fists trembling at his sides, his breathing erratic, his face contorting as he struggled to suppress his rage. His voice dropped into a hoarse whisper, almost growling. "You'll both regret this." And then, with stiff shoulders and clenched fists, Victor stormed off into the darkness, leaving us standing there beneath the crushing weight of everything that had just unfolded. Vicente exhaled quietly, his eyes softening as he looked down at me. "Are you all right?" he asked. I nodded faintly, though my heart was still racing uncontrollably. In that moment, I knew everything had changed. The war between us and Victor was only just beginning. And from now on, nothing would ever be simple again. Chapter 13. The night of truth and the meeting proposal. Victor's words still echoed sharply in my ears, but before I could react to his ridiculous accusation, Vicente's quiet but cutting voice cut through the air like a cold blade. He let out a sarcastic chuckle, his arm around my waist tightening just slightly. His eyes glanced at Victor with complete disdain. "You're nothing but a dog my wife finally realized was never worthy of her," Vicente said calmly, his voice sharp yet steady, his words slicing deep without needing to shout. "If you've got mental issues, go see a doctor. Don't think your face gives you some special power." He said it all in one breath, calmly yet mercilessly. My heart skipped a beat. I turned to look at Vicente's face, his gaze steady, cold, yet serene. There was no hint of anger or instability. He was completely in control. Before I could say anything more, Vicente whispered gently, "Let's go, wife," and guided me away, pulling me behind him. "Victor, left standing there, could only breathe heavily, his face twisted with helpless rage. On the way home, something felt different. Vicente wasn't his usual composed self. He spoke more than usual. His words slurred slightly. I poked him gently. Vicente, are you drunk? No, he replied, but I didn't believe him for a second. Do you know who I am? I teased, half curious, half testing. He opened his eyes slowly, smiling lazily. My wife. My heart fluttered unexpectedly. So he was definitely drunk. Still, seeing him like this unguarded, softer sparked a bold curiosity inside me. I lowered my voice, carefully testing the waters. Vicente, do you like me? He answered, without hesitation. Yes. The simplicity of his answer caught me completely off guard. Hearing him say it so directly made my chest tighten. I felt a mixture of warmth, nervousness, and disbelief flooding in at once. I swallowed hard. Since when? I whispered. But instead of answering, Vicente fell silent. His head drooped slightly, his breath slowing as if falling asleep. But then, suddenly, he sat up straight, startling me. I'm going to take a shower, he announced. I blinked and pointed toward the bathroom. Over there. But instead of heading toward it, Vicente looked at me and said, half serious, half teasing, let's go together. My cheeks flushed instantly. Chapter 14. Meeting my father and the unexpected crash. Of course, in the end, we didn't shower together. By the next morning, Vicente had returned to his usual self, cool, distant, calm as always. I'm going to work, he announced, his voice clipped and professional. I told him I was fine, but before he left, I stopped him. Vicente, my dad wants to meet you. He paused. His eyes blinked slightly faster than usual. When? This weekend. Will you have time? Okay, he answered simply before heading off to another busy day of work. I thought everything would go smoothly since Vicente had met my father before, but when the weekend arrived, Vicente surprised me. He dressed far more formally than usual, even more than for his high-stakes business meetings. Not only that, his car was packed with boxes in the back seat and trunk gifts, no doubt. You drive, Vicente instructed calmly as he handed me the keys. I need to review some contracts. You're still working? I asked softly, a little worried. We can postpone this if you're too busy. Vicente shook his head. No need. I can read in the car. As I drove, I glanced over at him. He stared at the same page for an unnaturally long time. The edges of the contract paper were crumpled slightly from his tight grip. It wasn't hard to tell was nervous. That alone surprised me. Vicente, always calm and unflappable, was actually nervous about meeting my father. Somehow, the realization made me feel warm inside. It was oddly sweet. Vicente, I called softly. He turned to glance at me. My father is a kind man. He loves me very much. And as long as I'm happy, he will accept anyone I bring home. Vicente paused for a moment, then whispered, Did you ever bring Victor to meet your father? No, I answered truthfully. That seemed to relax him a little. Suddenly, from out of nowhere, a black motorcycle shot toward the driver's side at high speed. Vicente reacted instantly, leaning across from the passenger seat, grabbing the steering wheel with both hands. Elise, he shouted. Bam! The car swerved, narrowly missing a direct collision with the motorcycle, but slammed hard against the roadside barrier. My chest tightened from the impact, my head dazed. But my first instinct was to look at Vicente. Blood was dripping down his forehead. My heart clenched in fear. Thanks to Vicente's quick reflexes and the fact that I had been driving at a low speed, the crash wasn't too severe. My CT scan came back clear, but Vicente wasn't as lucky. He had fractured his hand and suffered a mild concussion. The sight of him lying in the hospital bed, pale, bandaged, and yet still calm, made my chest ache. As I entered his hospital room carrying his medicine, I crossed paths with the traffic officer who had just finished questioning him. The suspect is already in custody, the officer assured me. We'll have full results soon. Vicente simply nodded with a quiet, his usual calm back on full display despite his injuries. Seeing me enter, Vicente extended his hand. "Come here." I walked over. His sharp gaze quickly swept over me. "Are you all right?" "Yes," I nodded, trying to stay strong for him. "Good." His voice was soft but firm. "I'll handle the discharge paperwork later. We'll have the driver take you home first." Even while injured, he still remembered our scheduled visit with my father. I smiled gently. "I already called my dad. We can go another time when you feel better." Only then did Vicente finally relax, his shoulders easing as the tension faded slightly from his expression. Chapter 15. Hidden Feelings Revealed. Half a year had quietly passed since Vicente and I officially became husband and wife. Though our marriage had started with little fanfare, 6 months later we held a grand wedding that left everyone in awe. The guests congratulated me endlessly, calling me lucky, saying I had married the most outstanding man in the city. And, honestly, they weren't wrong. Vicente was indeed extraordinary, calm, powerful, respected by everyone, a man who built his empire with steady hands. But deep down, I never wanted to be seen only as Vicente's wife, hiding behind his name. I didn't want to be a decorative figure in the business world who gained everything simply by marrying well. So I threw myself into work with relentless effort, building my own contacts, creating my own market share, negotiating projects, and proving to the board that I was more than just the Lou daughter who married well. 2 or 3 years after the wedding, even the most skeptical members of the board had no choice but to acknowledge my competence and independence. I had carved out my own territory and earned my seat at the table. And in these years of both professional battles and quiet domestic life, my feelings for Vicente grew slowly but steadily. At first, it was gratitude, admiration, and comfort. But as time passed, I realized it was far more than that. I liked him, perhaps even loved him, but Vicente, ever composed and distant, never expressed his feelings openly. His self-control was terrifyingly strong. And I, despite all my growing confidence in the business world, still found myself too shy to confess my true emotions. We had grown close, very close, yet there was still something invisible, unspoken, separating us from becoming a fully open and intimate couple. Vicente was masterful at concealing emotions. His handsome face rarely betrayed what was going on inside his mind, and if I hadn't learned to observe the tiniest details, I would have thought he remained indifferent. But I saw it, like the way he handled my drawings. Over the years, I had drawn many portraits of him. Drawing was my passion since high school, and after marrying Vicente, I picked it up again, often using him as my model whenever we had spare time together. Yet, no matter how many times I drew him, those drawings would mysteriously vanish the next morning. At first, I thought nothing of it. But one day, curiosity got the better of me. I remembered the treasure room Vicente once showed me after we got married. That so-called treasure room didn't hold ancient art or rare antiques, as one might expect from a man like Vicente. No, what I found inside shocked me far more. The entire room was filled with my paintings. Not just the recent ones I had drawn after we married, but paintings from years ago, ones I thought were long gone. These were the works I had auctioned off during charity events back in high school and college. Paintings that had sold for high prices to anonymous buyers. Vicente had bought them all. Quietly, secretly, patiently, over many years, without ever telling me. He had been silently collecting my artwork long before we were even together, storing them in that room as if they were priceless treasures. The realization struck me like a lightning bolt. Vicente had loved me for years, quietly, deeply, without ever saying a word. His affection didn't need grand declarations or dramatic gestures. It was hidden in every silent purchase, every carefully stored canvas, every private collection he built around me. That night, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I needed to confront him, to break the years of silent tension between us. I teased him, unable to suppress my playful side. "So, you've secretly loved me for years, haven't you?" I smiled mischievously as I poked his arm. Here I thought president and was such a serious, emotionless gentleman. Turns out you've been hiding little secrets this whole time." Vicente's ears turned crimson instantly, his fists clenching tightly as if struggling to maintain his composure. "Elise, you can't," he stammered, his voice shaking slightly, betraying his usual calm. "Can't what?" I pressed, leaning closer, refusing to let him escape this time. My heart was racing not with fear, but with excitement and anticipation. "Vicente, I already know everything. Why won't you admit it?" Vicente lowered his gaze, his eyelashes fluttering like nervous wings, trying to avoid my stare, but I wouldn't relent. My voice softened, almost a whisper now, but firm and persistent. "Just admit it, Vicente. You've loved me for a long time, haven't you?" For a brief moment, he remained frozen, as if his mind was waging an internal war between holding onto his pride and finally letting go of the secret he had carried for so long. Chapter 16. A decade of silent love finally answered. For 10 long years, I had quietly loved her, hiding those feelings deep inside, afraid to expose them, afraid that one day they might be crushed. I only dared to love her in the silence of midnight when she was already asleep, peacefully unaware of how much my heart ached just lying beside her. There were countless moments when I wanted to tell her, countless nights when I rehearsed the words in my mind, but each time I backed down, thinking perhaps my feelings weren't worth troubling her with. I had watched her from afar since we were teenagers, when she was just a girl carrying her easel across campus, wearing her white uniform skirt, smiling under the dappled sunlight in the school's ecological garden. I stood nearby, always pretending to be coincidentally passing through, always finding a reason to linger just a little longer, to catch a glimpse of her profile while she painted. When my father died, and I was forced to abandon school to take over the company, I thought that would be the end of everything, that I would no longer have a chance to stay close to her. But fate allowed me to hear her voice one last time. Back then, I gathered all my courage and asked her to listen to me play a song for the New Year's show. That night, under the guise of a performance rehearsal, I played Claire de Lune for her, not because I needed her critique, but because I simply wanted her to hear it, to play it for her, just for her. She smiled and encouraged me, completely unaware of the real meaning behind the song, unaware that my heart had already fallen long before. And even after I left school, after the company nearly collapsed, after being ridiculed, humiliated, forced to drink myself sick for contracts, I still followed her news from afar. I watched her thrive, saw her university entrance interview, while I lay recovering in a hospital bed, watched her go viral for a photo taken by the lakeside while painting. I bought every one of her paintings at charity auctions, not to own them as investments, but to hold on to pieces of her that I could never truly reach. And when she finally left the art world to take over her family's company, I watched her stumble, struggle, and rise again, just as I once had. She became stronger, braver, more radiant than ever. I thought perhaps after all these years I might finally have a chance. But she chose Victor. And for a long time, I could only stand silently behind, swallowing my jealousy, forcing myself to respect her choices, even though my heart burned every time I saw them together. Until fate, cruel yet merciful, intervened. On the very day they were to be married, Victor revealed his betrayal, and Elise came to me. I was stunned when she appeared, more stunned when she proposed marriage. And still, even then, I hesitated and foolishly made her go through those 3 final shots on the pool table. When she failed, when I saw her about to give up, I couldn't hold back any longer. I had to help her finish that shot, to take that final step with her. And now, here she was, lying peacefully beside me, no longer someone I could only love in secret, but my wife. My arm was numb from her weight, but I didn't dare move. I just stared at her face under the soft morning light, memorizing every detail, still afraid it was a dream I might wake from. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. Elise was mine. After a decade of silent love, after all the missed opportunities, after all my cowardice, my love had finally been answered warmly, sincerely, passionately. My fingers gently brushed against her cheek, and in that moment, My heart whispered over and over again, yes. Thank you so much for staying with Universe of Love in anime through this emotional journey of Elise and Vicente. From silent love to an unspoken bond finally revealed, this story reminds us that sometimes the most beautiful love is the one that quietly grows over the years, waiting for the right moment to bloom. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more heartwarming and intense love stories like this, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to Universe of Love in Anime, and share it with your friends who also love powerful romance tales. Your support means everything to us and keeps these stories alive. Stay tuned for more unforgettable love stories because every heart deserves its own universe of love.